It was our movement that fought against the idea of the one-party state and fought the idea of the life president. That even at the height of the Cold War, the principles that we have subscribed to were laid out clearly. Democracy, the rule of law, respect for human rights, the development of a market economy. Those are the principles that we have fought for, and they continue to be the principles that we fight for today. Let us continue to forge ahead on this basis and hold proudly aloft the banner of the NPP as we engage in the context of political power with respect towards our opponents and in a spirit of cooperation and harmony for the good of Mother Ghana, which at all times must remain a united and free nation.
Ghana's leaders and the heroes of our independence met in Sorbonne on 4th August 1947. Backgrounds: J.B. Dankwa, William Oforiatta, Edward Akufo-Addo, Akuaje, R.S. Blake, and others, all of whom are progenitors of the Dankwa Busia Dombo tradition, and for that matter, our party today, were the leaders. These people founded Ghana. And Nkrumah, who had been invited by these unsung heroes, became one of the founding fathers by courtesy of their invitation. Kwame Nkrumah left for the United States in 1935. He studied and worked in the United States and England. He returned to Ghana in December 1947 on the invitation of the UGC leaders who paid his fare and expenses, etc. He was the only person on the salary in the UGCs. If something had not been founded, what was he brought down to assist in? The cry for independence reached full blast after 1940s, the 48th rounds. On 28 February 1948, when the ex-servicemen marched, the cry for independence had been resonating already before Nkrumah arrived.
Petitioners, and there have been respondents, meaning there are two sides. What should happen is, wherever the decision is going to fall, if those are judged as victorious, they should know that they are not there for themselves. They are there for Ghana. Those against whom the verdict will go should also restrain themselves, because after all, we should pray for life. There will be another chance in due course, 3 years, 4 years down the line. And the whole idea of multi-party democracy is alternating systems. The thing not to do is to try to end it all in one day. So when we behave like that, and the generality of us appreciate things this way, then we move ahead, and then we use the checks and balances system of government to get the governors to be accountable.
They were arrested in February 2009. That was the first trial, and the jurors were not unanimous. So the court ordered a retrial. But one thing strange about this very case is that without mentioning was, I think that there some hidden forces actually detecting the pace of this case. or dictating the trend of this case. I am saying so because normally or professionally it's not advisable for a lawyer to come out with this statement. But I am saying so in this particular case because of the difficulties I have gone through. No, the case was heard that jurors were not unanimous, and the matter, upon a petition which I sent to the Chief Justice, the matter was sent to Bolaga because of security implications. We went to Bolaga, from Sunyani to Bolaga, I went there not less than 4 or 5 times. When we were ready, when the judge warned that he was going to hear the matter because the prosecution witnesses were not coming, the next agenda date we learned that the matter had also been transferred once again from Bolaga to Tamale. This is unusual.
Petitioners and there have been respondents, meaning there are 2 sides. What should happen is wherever the decision is going to fall, if those are judged as victorious, they should know that they are not there for themselves alone. They are there for Ghana. Those against whom the verdicts would go should also restrain themselves, because after all, we should pray for life. There will be another chance in due course, 3 years, 4 years down the line. And the whole idea of multi-party democracy is alternating systems. The thing not to do is to try to end it all in one day. So when we behave like that, and the generality of us appreciate things this way, then we move ahead, and then we use the checks and balances system of government to get the governors to be accountable.
The reality has been that unlike other jurisdictions, where monies donated for political causes are given without expectation necessarily of personal returns, experience under the 92 Constitution has shown that politicians have come to depend on the investment, and I use the word advisedly, of private citizens and corporations with the expectation that a successful capture of power would result in the reimbursement and profiteering of those investors. Invariably, therefore, the absence of a structured system of funding of political parties in Ghana, coupled with a failure to adopt a policy approach to the compensation of political actors for pre-electoral services, have led to the negative subcultural behavior manifested in the winner-takes-all business. The consequence has been that electoral loss has been equated to surrender in warfare, with its concomitant effect. The effect of these factors are further reinforced by the feedback generated on the adoption of a winner-takes-all attitude as a political strategy, and how these are exploited by political actors to secure electoral advantage. Mr. Chairman, knowing what the prospect of victory offers, candidates in elections make promises whose fulfillment can only be guaranteed by dislodging opponents from occupied positions and depriving them of entitlements secured under contracts and other engagements.
I think that something that makes us insecure is the fact that usually the winner takes it all. Now, from now, don't let the winner take it all. Let us share. This country belongs to all of us. Government change. What I've seen is that no king lasts forever. The people will be fed up one day. So let us be patient. Let us talk to each one of us. I know that for us in the leadership, for us alone, there will be no problem. The problem comes from our followers.
Oman ye basi ebe sumo mana mana ewie tayo ya masi ebe titi oman enti se bibisa ebe ma oman mu awa atitia na ye baya na se ye ko na wo mu enka se Momienye Bao. Na Fedi, you move mine, Senia, I said, listen, if I do. Be Samia, a bad day, so we can also make up. And they said, and fear me and Sanke. You were unity government to cry, and Kabef. Ah, ye nan ye yejma. 2016. Now Fedi, ya Jenny who say, you call back to party politics. Kabeyamide. And to me, Papa, me boy, and they say, after noon, or more many of mine ye deal. Now, among Cassie, you will no man of the na Yakabu, ya pese ye sum, and more mine a real pale. Me did this a gun of food in a better than was it. Who to the car we cry and tell and come on, we cry. Otimuano, baby Bianca, now so Cecilia, a Diaco, a Timuafon, also Mubuasem, now so. Yenia ye person here, my uncle, the Mompire, Maya Moya homody, Maya near who a ninkita home, young winning, near her, a baby among mine, and I am. And medium when it does work, when it does work as here. Ghana, your mind beer, Yamia Shirai, a yasum dear mine. E you don't mind. Na minim se Ghana so. Ye nyina ye free busua ba. Say wo free hwira wo, so free asanti wo, so free sremu wo, so free nkran wo, so free nsima wo. Ye nyina ye busua ba.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, undoubtedly. And on this show, we put Ghana first. Now, someone must be charged for causing fear and alarm in the Republic. But should the police, the security, fix the charge on itself? The politicians, the preachers of peace, the U.S. Embassy, or the media, or... And does the atmosphere ahead of the Supreme Judgment vindicate Justice William Atugube's perfect summary of our collective concern about the needless cycle of political tension every 4 years? Well, the NPP's 21st anniversary throws up a most unpopular solution: unity government, power sharing, or is it all-inclusive, winner must not take all governments? And how do I know that this is a most unpopular solution? An unscientific poll on my Facebook wall has 97% of Ghanaians voting against any such political arrangement. The sample size is some 350 people. Well, the anniversary also invites us to another round of the vexed subject about the founding of Ghana. Well, Ghanaian presidents have for decades declined, or should I say, been afraid to murder murderers. They just won't sign those death warrants. We paid a Constitution Review Commission to bring us the majority view against killing in punishing killers. Since the last execution in 1993, the courts have generally chosen life imprisonment. So why now? And what are the implications of the sentence to death by hanging in August 2013 by a Tamale High Court? These are the issues that we'll be looking at on Newsfile this morning. You're welcome with your views, your comments, your opinions on our Facebook wall, 1422, the text line. You can also send an email to newsfile@myjoyonline.com. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile on Joy 99.7 FM. You're also watching us on your Joy News channel on Multi-TV and on ABN channel on the Skype platform, in elsewhere in Europe. Thank you very much for joining us. You're also watching us via streaming, www.multitvworld/streams. Also listening at myjoyonline.com. Thank you very much. Wherever you're listening, however you are doing so, just send us your messages 1422 or to email newsfile@myjoyonline.com or post your comments on our Facebook wall, and we will share them with the rest of the millions of people who are listening in Ghana and abroad. My guests are seated in the studio, and you know the issues that we are going to be dealing with. We're dealing with the U.S. Embassy warning to its citizens ahead of the election petition, judgment. You also have judicial service staff who are threatening strike, which could affect the 29th delivery of the verdict as well. You have also the IEA coming forward to appeal to the parties not to exercise their right of review if they feel so after the decision has been given. There are several strands of the issue ahead, the issues that have come up ahead of the judgment. So we'll look at all of them, and my guest, Abdul Malik Kwekubaku Jr., is a regular panelist. He's the editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. The lawyer, Ni Ayikwe Otu, the man of the moment, the man you began to speculate about and propound your own conspiracy theories about why he was not on the show last week. He is here, former Attorney General, Ni Ayikwe Otu. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you.
Abdul Malik, good morning to you also.
Yeah, thank you, bro.
Nana Atu Daze needs no introduction, of course, not on this show as well. He is a former chief of staff and also a lawyer, and with the third respondents in courts. Good morning, Nana, and welcome to the show. Abraham Amaliba is also with the legal team of the third respondents in the petition. He is with the NDC legal team. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. All right, so the discussion starts right here. This show is brought to you by the kindest courtesy of MTN Everywhere You Go, Bank of Africa, and Lipton. Inspiration flowing naturally. Right, I got a bit of a difficulty there. Now, I'd like to start with you, Mr. Ikotu, and congratulations. I know that this is the platform on which judicial notice was taken of the Supreme Court, that you have been doing a good job in educating people about that animal called contempt. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. I'll start with you on this discussion. And the very general question I'd like to ask, first of all, is what kind of a democracy is our country that preparations towards the judgment of a court appear to be preparations for a war? What's going on?
Well, thank you. I don't know the basis for some of these things. The election has been very charged. The country itself has been charged. Elections anywhere, like even judgments of a court, are not easily acceptable by people who lose. So, especially when there are basis for saying that things didn't go right, then they have difficulty in just accepting it. Of course, sometimes there's so much political pressure which is brought to bear on a losing candidate that he should not look at it like a sour loser. He should come out and behave himself and just say, well, I congratulate the other guy as won, the Electoral Commission has spoken. So you have those kinds of situations. Well, the talk of preparation for war, I am not too sure of that. I don't believe that we have any cogent evidence, to come to that conclusion. What makes it a little bit more difficult is the American embassy's advice to its people.
Right.
Do they know something that maybe we don't know? Or is the routine thing that they would do to their people because they are here generally seeking the welfare of their people in this country? And therefore, ahead of elections, they are saying that if the people themselves are calling for peace, national imam, Catholic priest, everybody is calling for peace everywhere, then you too be very careful where you tread.
All right.
Otherwise, you may maybe find yourself in some kind of unfortunate situation.
Okay, we'll come to those specific. I just wanted your preliminary comment on the general atmosphere. Nana Todazi, tell me, Mr. Ikutu says he can't find the reason or the purpose for that, talk about heightened tension and all of it, and the preparation that I describe as sounding as though we're preparing for war and not for a court judgment. When the security of the state, the police, only the police, deploys 32,000 on the day on which a Supreme Court is going to deliver a judgment on a petition, that's obviously doesn't sound like everything is right.
Sure. Thanks very much. Yes, I have a lot of sympathies for what my colleague Ikutu is just said. Again, let me also congratulate him. I did the other day. I mean, it's his time. He should separate it. Nobody can take it away from him.
All right.
He pulled a colleague from throats of Sawom. I mean, you can't deny that. That's what he's, why he's a lawyer. But back to the matter, just briefly, I think that it's one of realism. You don't sit down and let events roll. Suddenly you say, why didn't you prepare? You must prepare. Like the adage goes, if you want peace, you must prepare for war. There's still two ways about that. A state must be prepared. The basic reason why we belong to a state is because it will give us protection and security. If it fails us on that, then it's no use. So for me, I mean, in every situation, you must also acknowledge there are some people who are just simply anarchists. I mean, they also exist. You get me? So you must be prepared for any eventuality. But I wouldn't say that I'm not ready to go into the numbers. Police population ratio is so low. 32,000 or so might sound huge, well, but in terms of crowd control and whatnot, might be insignificant.
Now, Abdul Malik, obviously, the democracy that Ghana presents itself as and represents in the sub-region becomes questionable if we look at the events leading to the judgment and the way we are preparing ourselves for it.
Well, I'm not too sure about the judgment that you appear to have placed on the matter, because you're saying questionable. That's the operative word. I'm not too sure what is happening must necessarily question our democratic credentials. If anything, it must enhance it relative to the fact that there's a petition at the highest court of the land to challenge a declaration made by the EC. This is allowed by the Constitution, 64(1). So we're doing the right thing. We've opted for a civilized option to deal with a certain mischief perceived by some people. So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, in terms of the environment and what the security services, the civil society groups, religious leaders, everybody saying, it's more of a preemptive and preventive, posturing that in the Fibia was in Mensa, you never can tell what would happen. Even though I think broadly speaking, the generality of Ghanaians are committed to law and order and to peace and stability. And I have always said the fact that you go to court is an implicit commitment to what would come out of the court. Even if you don't like it, there's also due process to cure whatever miscarriage of justice you perceive. So it's all within the law. But I would have been surprised if the police and security services did not do analysis of possible scenarios and as to how to contain it. There's a side of psychological operation aspect to all these things. It's okay. I've never had a problem with that, you know, in terms of the chorus for peace and stability. I haven't had any problem with it in principle.
All right.
Because you never can tell. Even though this is a small country, it's also scattered. There are many areas that police jurisdiction is weaker in terms of relativity, the numbers and response, rapid response. There could be few people who go out there jubilating and teasing and mocking, and that can spark. This is a country where a small tussle of a guinea fowl at a market led to an explosion that ended up with more than 5,000 people, official figures dead, unofficially 10,000.
But contextually, that should not be said, that it was about a guinea fowl.
I know that, but I say that's a spark.
Okay.
I know that. There were residual fundamental issues, but it took that small spark because in a small locality for it to spread, for it to generate that widespread effect. And I'm saying that it could happen again in this sense. It could. That's the operative word.
Okay.
I'm not saying it would happen. So security services that are professional and responsible will plan ahead, do preventive, preemptive, psychological operation strategies and things.
All right.
We lose nothing as a nation
Okay.
if we embark on that exercise.
Abi, Kuku, you know, elaborates all of these and yet says that, you know, this should not be, you know, an indictment of our democratic credentials, that we are afraid ahead of a judgment of a court.
I see what is happening as predicated on the principle that Ghana is peaceful and must remain so after the judgment. So this carrot and stick approach that is being used, and when I say carrot and stick approach, you notice that the security services went out in force to show their might on the various streets of our capitals, to show that they are ready when anything happens. Then we have the Peace Council and we have the civil society also going out and preaching peace. So that is what I mean by the carrot and stick approach. Next is that there is nothing like there's too much peace. So nobody should be saying that, oh, but there's already peace in Ghana and after the election there will be peace. In fact, there's nothing like too much peace. And so if what we are doing as a nation is adding on to the peace, so be it. Indeed, we as a country are surrounded by countries that have gone a certain way. And we cannot fail because we have examples to look up to, such that we cannot allow ourselves to go down that drain. If we did that and allow ourselves to go down that drain, then we have ourselves to blame because there are a lot of examples that we could have learned from. So I'm thinking that the security agencies, the civil society organizations, who have also had the opportunity to be in those countries, are drawing from examples and saying that never should we go that way. And so we should, as a nation, see what is happening as a mark of maturity, a group of people, a society that is preemptive, and a society that is ready to ensure that even after the verdict, there will be peace.
All right. Thank you very much. Now, let's get down to some bits of the detail. And I'm back to you, Mr. Aikotu. The United States Embassy here in Ghana issued a circular, that very famous circular now to its citizens, and sought to caution them, telling them where not to go. Don't go to the Supreme Court area. Don't go to any party headquarters offices. Be careful about demonstrations because they could turn into something else. And then suddenly, we began to take it at the embassy for what they had done. The suggestion was that they were rather causing fear and panic, which is a criminal offense. and people are surprised that in the midst of all we have done ourselves as a country prior to that period, we can still blame the embassy for what it did.
Well, as I said, they have a responsibility toward their citizens in Ghana, and therefore if they foresee something and they want to warn their own citizens about it, nobody should have any quarrel with that. But the issue is, what is it that maybe they know and we don't know? Because like we've gone around the table, everybody is saying there's not like too much peace. We just try and preempt whatever would have happened. We've lived in this West African country, and we know the difficulties and little sparks that led to so many, trauma to people in their countries. And therefore, we should also take preemptive measures, if you like. This show of force, this critical mass telling the people we are there, is to send signals that, hey, like in those days we used to hear, you will be crushed. If you attempt to do something, we are going to crush you and things like that. That's like the strategy that is being adopted once again. That we have the men, we have the ability to execute whatever we intend to execute. So please be careful, like the lunatic fringe thing that we have all spoken about. There are some people out there who may want to maybe misbehave or something. But I have said on various platforms that I do not foresee any such difficulty. Ghanaians generally are very, peace-loving. We know the excesses of 1979 and 1981, the problems that we all went through. Soldiers are soldiers. They are given the same training. But ordinarily, to find Ghanaians rising up, they may do, like it took place in this Ashama when they said they've got fed up with the kind of road system that they had. People rose up, spoke, the police were sent there, they quelled it. But fortunately, the following day, there was mobilization, the road was made, So after all, in Trayvon Martin in America, almost everybody went on demonstration one day, and that was it, and nothing happened thereafter. So perhaps a few people may show, would not be happy with maybe a judgment one way or the other, say one or two things, unkind words to others. But so long as we have the police in terms of, internal security, and then the military standing there when they are invited to come in, I believe that we will get out of it. I mean, it's not, you go into elections, you spend so much money, and then you believe you have been cheated. You say something. Now you've gone to court, the same thing. You believe you have a very good case, and you ought to win the case. And the judges are telling you that you've lost. They will not be happy. There may be one or two things, but I believe that once we get the security people around to, make sure, not use brutal force, though, because we've seen that kind of situation. People go on demonstration and you go and shoot people, woman hungers and things like that. It's not the best. Use crowd control measures to ensure that people are not permitted to go where they ought to go, or disperse the crowd, let them go home, let them go and chew on whatever had happened. And time heals wounds. Before you say, Jack, people will come back and say, like President Kufuor was saying, how many more years do we have? We'll go back to another election. So to me, we shouldn't hype and overhype this sort of thing. And basically, the Americans were talking to their own people. If they know something we don't know, we rather should use the diplomatic means to go and seek out that information from them.
Maybe there are those who say, for example, that what we have heard as a reaction to this from the Interior Ministry and other governments, apparatus, government operations, of course, including the comments by former President Kufuor, that there is no tension in this country. It's simply behaving like the ostrich. You're just simply running away from reality.
The U.S. have a cardinal responsibility, and they have shown that over the years. And that responsibility is to protect their citizens wherever they are. And so you cannot fault them if they send messages to their citizens to be wary of danger. Now, are we not worried ourselves? Is anybody telling me, then that's the ostrich we are playing? I entered a pharmacy, and the lady managing the place told me that on that day she's not going to come to work. And I said, why? That they say everybody should stay back. I said, no, that isn't it. So we ourselves are worried. Now, if they are sending messages to their citizens, and you see, let's be careful. They are not saying that their citizens should leave Ghana. And so they themselves are not even saying that Ghana is not safe. They are only saying that don't go to open spaces. And so if they are telling their citizens that way, it is in the right direction and nobody can fault them, because unlike some countries who don't care the hoot about their citizens, they care. And so must rather be commending them and then, as it were, emulate their shining example. We have situations where our citizens are found somewhere in a dire situation. They will send distress calls and nobody even listens to them. This should rather show us that we should do the same to our citizens. Now, the Minister of Interior, I heard the Deputy Minister for Information indicate that they have put in place mechanisms to ensure that there will not be violence after the elections. That is what we should be saying also. So the government of Ghana has every right to assure its people and visitors into this country that nothing will happen. Other countries will have a right to indicate that, look, be wary, don't go to these places. So for me, there are two parallel things and both have the right to say what they are saying. One should not be seen as condemning the other. It is just that it's a way of complementing each other's effort.
Nana, you don't buy the criticism of those who say, let's not treat this as a harmless and normal, harmless, regular travel secular, which is provoking what you may call a needless alarmist alert. But we should also look at it from a certain perspective, that the US may know something that we do not know as far as intelligence is concerned, and again, that what they have done has the potential, if it has already not done so, heightened, the global picture about what is happening in Ghana.
No, I don't share that view at all. I mean, first of all, we are Ghanaians, we must know ourselves. We must believe in ourselves. This is not the first time we've had elections. This is not the first time there have been elections being contested. 2008, it was the same thing. It was a very high one. The expectation in 2000, in the year 2000, there was even a belief that, will Rawlings go, will Rawlings not go? It was even higher. I mean, some people sold up and then left this country. It's always been the case. When they were going into the new millennium, you know what happened? The panic thing. There are people who set the panic buttons alert. I think that, like my colleagues have said, I mean, any mission or consulate has two basic rules or obligations. One, to foster good relations with their host country, and then secondly, to protect its citizens. Now, when Mr. Justice Atunguba, in his open talk to the nation, said that he himself had been told to avoid going out walking alone. You understand? That he is being told that. And I told you, my wife tells me, don't go for a walk myself. That's some niggling fears. These are legitimate human things. You get me? So if another person is telling his children or his citizens, be careful, what's your problem? I don't think there are any hidden, secrets or something known. Not. If there's anything to be known, our people, our security will know first. And I have absolute and total confidence in our state of the security setup, and I'm quite certain that all that they do, like we said, these are preemptive things to make sure that people know that we are ready for the worst. You see, the nature of violence that is unleashed in this world today can be terrible. One person ties something around his body and goes and stands in a crowd, and boom, so many people. So you cannot afford that. Only one person with a wrong idea goes to blow up a whole building out in the States. That's me. You cannot compromise it. security. We cannot talk as though security the issue of security is being overblown. So basically, I think that these are advisory notes which they are entitled to issue, just as we have been advised in our various homes that on that day be careful. In any case, let me tell you, as for American citizens too, like most of us, they are inquisitive. They want to know everything. They want to be everywhere. They may not understand the cultural nuances, that there are some. When somebody has lost a case, he obviously will be agitated. Yeah. And then you are also hanging around. My friend has said that, look, in boxing, when you hit your opponent and he falls down, go back, pull back. You don't go near him. Otherwise, you will be accused of adding to his wounds.
I don't know if you share the view of Nana that what has happened through the U.S. Embassy is not what would have, as it were, globalized the local perceived tension. That has not happened at all. Because the fear is that when the United States speaks, a lot of things happen. It goes all over the world.
I agree. It's a superpower, perhaps the only one remaining. And so when it speaks, people take notice. There's no doubt about that. And why shouldn't they speak relative to the present situation? I have absolutely nothing against what the state of Ghana is doing to ensure that whatever thing that goes wrong could be contained. So why should I be against the U.S. sending out a signal, note of caution? I don't get it. And Nana raised the point, a very critical point, that the presiding judge, whilst making a submission, even indicated that there are people who have raised issues about his own safety and security. You think nobody would take notice of that at the U.S. Embassy? They have people here who do monitor those things. Whatever our police and security services are doing is in anticipation of the possibility, I stress, possibility of something going untoward. And so having ready the capacity to contain it. What the U.S. has done, the embassy did, was to alert its citizens, and I'm reading from the text, of potential increase in political tensions and the possibility of isolated violence associated with the anticipated August 29 announcement of the Ghanaian Supreme Court's decision on the legal challenge to Ghana's election results. And this is critical area. You mentioned some. U.S. citizens in Ghana are reminded to maintain a high level of vigilance and to take appropriate steps to increase their security/safety awareness during this politically sensitive period. U.S. citizens in Ghana should avoid the offices of political parties, Ghana's Supreme Court, the buildings of other institutions associated with the elections, and all political rallies. Fair. Why not? Why not? Why shouldn't they? What have we done with the Supreme Court premises? We have issued, is it 100-meter?
That is radius security
yes,
zone.
And I've appealed to most people who don't have accreditation to watch on TV. Even those of us with accreditation, we've been told to bring them back and apply for new ones.
That's so.
What's all that? So there's nothing really essentially wrong with what the U.S. Embassy has done. The environment calls for it. This, even though there was a challenge to presidential declaration of presidential results in 2005. This one is a different kettle of fish. Apart from the televised coverage, the protractedness of the thing, the issues that have come, makes this a bit unprecedented. And everybody is sitting on an edge. I'm an eternal optimist. I know nothing, in my candid opinion, I don't believe Ghanaians would throw this country into any storm. I don't believe so. But I'll be foolish if I were part of the security agencies, if I didn't take steps to actually contain the possibility of any such thing. So there's too much noise. I was surprised some people were thinking that the U.S., as usual, was sending wrong signals or was creating. I was surprised. Then we should tell our own system that we've also been doing the wrong things. But I have never been against all those things that the security services were doing out there, or the peace messages being sung by the civil society groups and the religious leaders. I didn't think it hurt us. So really, my view is that there's actually no need for concern.
And you use the word, you use the expression that everybody is sitting on an edge.
Yes, in anticipation of which direction the verdict will go. Not that people are ready to go and create chaos. But obviously, there's anxiety out there.
There are reports,
And
example in the Herald newspaper. I do not know how scientific it is, but they report that aircraft are booked, market women are running to make huge withdrawals.
Did you read it? Did you read the story?
I did.
They had details there. They had evidence from those airlines that they had all those things. I didn't read it. That's why I'm asking
That's
these
why
questions.
I predicated that I don't know how scientific it is, because it's...
Yeah, but did they mention which aircraft, which airlines? You know, which people were leaving, which category of people, businessmen, traders, who are... I don't know.
Because even the concept of the fear of the unknown, it's just human, you know. So there's nothing real. I think that our duty is to assure the Ghanaians that we've been there before. We've gone through this. Wednesday will come and go. Ghana
You see,
will
we are
live,
part
then
of the
peace.
problem, but
I mean,
look, before the
some will
elections,
so what?
before the elections, this whole thing of all die be die, the way some people capitalized on it,
What happened to it?
and went and brought some statement, an article that had been published by one Mr. Troop, under the auspices of the CSIS, if you recall, and created the impression that after this, the last election, there will be chaos in Ghana. What happened? The all die be die people went to court. Telling you that that all die be die was not a call for arms, but the US issued a signal then too. You know that? They issued the same note of caution to their citizens during the campaign, before the elections. We ourselves sometimes, we inflict on ourselves this sense of insecurity. And then when others take precautionary measures to secure the safety of their citizens, we start lamenting. We are our own enemies.
Well, let's be honest, there were pockets of violence, you know, and we can't...
and that was attributed to all die be die.
No, it's
otherwise we've had pockets of violence.
It came
we
after
have
the
had
election.
pockets
so
of violence.
It's important
all
to,
our elections.
So good. So these are the pockets of violence that the US embassy is talking about.
So it was not
so that
directly
if a US
attributable-
citizen was found at those places, anything could have hit that person. So I think that
but
we
the
should
point is,
also
I'm not
acknowledge
sure
that there
you
were
are
some
answering.
pockets of violence.
I'm not sure you are
after
answering the point I made. I'm not sure.
I don't know if you also subscribe to the suggestion that we are largely to blame for what we now have described as people sitting on an edge, or the sort of fear that is hanging up there. We are largely to blame, and that we should now, you know, admit that those who said from the start that the loud peace calls could be counterproductive, you know, are right. And that this is where it is all coming from. We have been crying peace, 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 too much of it, and now it is turning to be, you know, fear.
We need a sense of history. We lived in this country. We saw the various elections that we went through from 1992 all the way till today. So if this is related to elections, then we should just draw and rely on the experiences we've gathered over all those years to come to a conclusion. At worst, after the presidential election in 92, the MPP just boycotted the parliamentary, that we will not take part. You know, what else did they do? They wrote the stolen verdict. That was all that happened. When the NDC were not also happy, they made a few noises here and there. In 2000 and 2004, as I said previously, I was told that Mills called Kufuor to congratulate. At the time, the NDC people were not ready for that. But he did that. It was already on BBC. I remember monitoring BBC as early as 3:30 or so. And they said that Mills had already called. You know, the people were not happy, but it went on. You know, so if we look at our history of elections, I think we are overhyping this thing. I've said it, that we lived in this country from 1992 to 1981, when we had a revolution, to about 1992, when D.F. Annan and his people were asked to go around the country and see what was happening. They all voted that we are going back to elections. We want democratic elections. Let the parties go back and reorganize. Even the CPP, whose name was taken away, they went to court and got it restored.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I keep on saying that we are overhyping these things, and our history doesn't show that this is what happens after elections. Our history does not show that one. We respect law and order, and a lot of us respect the security agencies. You know, I'm told that in the olden days around Bukum, there was this sentence, they say, so if you don't take care and you go to the main road to go and misbehave, they are going to give it to you there. So if they say don't come out and misbehave, nobody comes out. Because means that whether you are part or you are not part, you are likely to be brutalized if you go out there at the time you ought not to go. And they respect, you know, the security agencies. I'm telling you that I don't see any such thing happening.
Could you say, and you have insisted that you are not against these calls for peace, no matter how many, you know, they are, and whatever front they take. On this very table, all of you and other lawyers and other panelists have re-echoed what is law and fact, that the parties have no option than to accept the verdict of the Supreme Court. They may disagree, and if they disagree, their only right is the right of a judicial process of review.
Yeah.
So if that is fact and law, that no one has an option than to accept, why all the preaching?
I say the preaching does not hurt us in any way. That's the fundamental point I want to make. And it is true there's law and order. There was law and order, I suppose, in La Côte d'Ivoire. And somebody knew that he had no option. He had to stick to the law, but he did not. I'm sure there was law and order in Kenya. And in this country, anytime there's been a coup d'etat, there was law and order that debarred it. And yet we have. So that's what the point about the lunatic fringe. You can never tell. There are all sorts of characters in this body politic who may decide for one reason or the other to do something against the law and order that you so properly put across. That is why we prepare for possibilities and enhance capacity to contain those possibilities. Okay? Human nature being where it is, then we shouldn't even have a police because we are all supposed to be law-abiding.
All right.
But we anticipate that there could be some errant elements around, and we contain them through law and order.
We'll talk about the securities meeting with political party leaders and media owners. But Nana, what do you, first of all, make of the decisions or the proposals that are coming forward, especially from the IEA, that look, this is the price we ought to pay for peace. Let none of the party, the defeated party, let not the defeated party, you know, exercise their rights of review.
Well, I'm very sorry to disagree with my very good friends at IEA. I mean, I wholly disagree with them because the proposals and the suggestions which came from that session, it's almost subversive of the constitutional order.
How subversive?
I'm coming, just a minute. You see, the Constitution is the ground. I mean, it's a fundamental document. We've all, as a people, IEA was part of it. We decided or voted referendum that this document is what we're going to live by. That's what we're going to go by. And in it is the powers of the court, the Supreme Court, the powers of review. That issue about review has been tested in this country. And the Supreme Court itself has affirmed it or reaffirmed it. That the Supreme, then all of a sudden, some people meet somewhere and say, oh, you know, because of peace, we should suspend a certain portion of the Constitution. That is exactly what the suggestion coming up with. You see, then the document becomes a document of convenience. That is my fear. If we come to another bridge, another river, you get me, we might decide that, oh, this area, maybe these, political parties, they are becoming too much of a problem. So why don't we suspend them, you know, put them, you know, you don't know where it will end. Let us respect the Constitution. Let us respect the constitutional mandate. We've agreed 1992 to go along a certain path. One, multi-partyism. Secondly, that will be bound by a constitutional order. You understand? For me, I align with this issue of review. You know, it's the issue, the question of unity government. I don't know whether I can comment on it now.
We'll move on to that separately.
Okay. But I will come to it that I think that the IEA may have to, with all due respect to my friends and colleagues there, may have to review its own or go back to its own charter. And you will find out that in there, primary thing, I'll come to that unity thing. It's the unity review. Multipartyism is the base of their very existence as an establishment. And I wholly disagree with them. I know the founding fathers of IEA, Mr. Darocha, you know, he definitely, if he were alive, he would disagree with it. And I'll tell a little story when you come to the unity talks on that.
Mr. Eko,
I disagree with them.
The suggestion again is that, okay, if there's an agreement that any time we are going through this particular process, we put the nation in such, you know, atmosphere that is not good. We put the nation almost on the verge of, you know, retrogressing in our democratic, you know, journey. So if the price to pay is simply for the defeated party to exercise the option to say we will not review. I know that the review jurisdiction according to CI 16 rules 55 is not invoked lightly. That when you are going, you have to have special circumstances of discovery of new evidence. But if you are going to put the nation through another round of what we are going through, why not forget about it?
Well, it is a yes and a no answer. Yes, for the common good. That please, just accept it. Because if after the judgment, one person says, I'm going for review, what the person says that I'm not satisfied, I'm not accepting the decision. So the supporters now will say, aha, you see, we told you, these people are not correct. So let's go and do our own thing on the streets and start shouting. So that is where I believe they are coming from. Constitutionally, legally, they are wrong. Because the word always uses may appeal or may review. It is never automatic that anybody will do that. So you leave it to the best, senses, if you like, the conscience of the people who have lost to say that, look, we will not ask for review, we will not go on appeal. We've had this kind of situation in many, many, many circumstances where you are sure that you have been given a raw deal and you still tell your client, please forget about it. There will be another occasion. You understand? So, yes, if for the common good, it will not send wrong signals, for people to say that we are not accepting the results, so we are going for review. That alone tells you that the tension will mount. No, because legally it is for the person who has lost to take a decision, whether he wants to file an appeal or go for a review. So I see where they are coming from, but constitutionally, legally, they cannot compel anybody that don't go. That amounts to putting it in the shall form. You shall not go on appeal. Yeah. Why?
Maybe this is just an advice coming from a think tank like the IEA. Is that too much a price to pay?
Politically, they are right. Legally and constitutionally, they are wrong. Politically, in the sense that the politics of it, they've looked at the circumstances. They are saying that this has generated a lot of heat in the country.
Which you admit.
Which I admit. They are saying that, can we forget it and then move along with our lives? So politically, they are right. Legally, they are not right. And constitutionally, too, they are not right. Because constitutionally, a party who goes to court has the opportunity of a review, as in this instant case. And so the fact that and then one argument they make, and I disagree with them, even though politically they are right, is that for the sake of the peace of this country, they shouldn't go for a review. How can they equate going to court to breaching the peace? I think that going to court is by far the most civilized way of ensuring peace. And the framers of this constitution knew about that. That's why they said that they should go for a review.
Members of your government have complained about what this petition has meant negatively for the economy.
Samson, Every action has its own consequences. Indeed, when you say that you don't want to go out onto the streets because a car will hit you and you are lying on your bed, you can roll from your bed and break your neck. People have worn, what is the color? The color. And you ask them, they say, oh, they fell from their bed. Not a car hitting them. So whatever action we take has got its consequences. Whether we go for a review or we don't go for a review, there are consequences. I think that what we should be doing now is to ensure that the judgment that we will receive from the Supreme Court will be a judgment that would be beneficial to the people of this country. That for me is the bottom line. Above that, IEA, it doesn't lie in their mouth to, as it were, pontificate that persons should not go for a review. It is the parties alone who have that option not to go for a review and not any other person.
Kuku, what do you say to that? And maybe tied to that discussion also is the other aspect of those who are accused of seeking to predicate justice, seeking to insist that when we are talking about peace, we should be talking about a just judgment. It's also been coming up.
Well. I'm told that the IEA has indicated that they were only advising. They were urging, they were not imposing any route. So if that's the case, really, then there's no big deal there. Because if it's just a mere advice, what's there to be taken or to be rejected? So I really wouldn't belabor the point. The point really is that, as Amalba has made it clear, this constitutionally and legally, that option remains, recently reinforced by the Supreme Court in the Mana judgment. So why really delay? I believe that channel of review could even help to reduce tensions after a judgment. In any case, as has been indicated, it's not an appeal. So you must have seen a very fundamental error in judgment or a discovery of new evidence put together. It is not easy. It's not a retrial of the entire process. So it is not going to be easy. And I believe that people take their time before they go for review, So that's a matter. But the point about justice and peace, I have found something quite interesting. Not too long ago, it was our friends in the NDC who used to harp this whole theory about justice. You cannot have peace without justice. And in references to so many instances, the most typical being the Yana case and other matters. And I used to have difficulty with the way it was put in a very absolutist manner. I thought there was a problem. Suddenly, I hear our friends in the NPP making the same statement, to be honest with you. And
in fact, the very first statement the ex-president Akufo made was to this effect. He gave a qualified sort of acceptance. Now, he doesn't seem to be saying the same thing the last time he spoke.
I have a problem with it. It is true that where there's fairness, equity, equality, and justice, there will be tranquility and peace. It is true in a general form. But in a particular instance where you've sent a case to court, the court established an established institution to adjudicate on matters and pronounce judgment. The understanding is that you had faith in that process. That's why you went there in the first place. Fortunately, this same process gives you a certain avenue to contest whatever the product is eventually. It's all justice. All this thing is justice. So if the court comes out with judgment A and you find it unpalatable, you have the process, in this case, review and not appeal. And as we've said, this CI 16 tells us what you can do. So for me, if you go there and you lose, and you go for review and you lose, because you were unable, like Omani Boama and Samuel Samia Aplakwa failed to provide the essential elements, it's justice. You've lost. Simplicity, you've lost. Okay? You cannot in any other manner say that because you've lost in the original litigation and you lost on review, what happened was not justice. So who is going to deliver that justice? We have an established law-governed society. We have put in place institutions and processes to ensure that we get that kind of justice. We appreciate that the courts are not infallible, and that's why there is that appellate system within it. You know, so to be honest with you, the propagandist appreciation or attempt to draw a certain Chinese wall between peace and justice, or to say that without, if I go to court, I won't get it, it's problematic. And I had a problem when the NDC approached it in that propagandist, absolutist manner. I have a problem with how some of my friends in the NDPP are also handling it today. I don't think that's the way forward for this country. You send a case to court, let the court deal with it. If the court gets it wrong, you have an opportunity to go and cure that mischief. If you go without the essentials, look, the 5-4 Chachu case, that became 6-5. There's one essential thing people forget in terms of the review. If a 5-4 majority said Parliament was the institution that ought to have created those courts.
Fast track.
Okay? And it turned out that in the Constitution itself, Parliament can only create the courts below the High Court, but not from the High Court. That was a fundamental error in law, which underpinned the 5-4 majority decision. At review, when you bring this fundamental error in law to the open, you are bound to throw away the 5-4. At least one leg of it, one pillar of it. So, yes, we'll wait. At this stage, there's a bit of anticipatory analysis we are doing, but we don't even know what the verdict will be. And if the verdict comes out, we have no verdict to examine thoroughly, so as to see whether even a review will be a possible, a probable action to take. So to be honest with you, justice is what we are seeking at the Supreme Court, but the environment, which is already peaceful, cannot be disturbed and should not be disturbed and must not be disturbed by whatever decision the Supreme Court takes.
In a minute, can you? I don't know if you were part of the meeting by the National Security, but
no, I didn't get an invitation.
What do you find is the essence of that? Meeting the party chairman and also meeting the media.
The party, it's part of the same so-called peace interventions. I have no problem with it, as long as there is no opportunity for national security or an arm of the executive wing to impose prescriptions on our practice, because the Constitution fronts on that. Nobody is to direct us, instruct us as to what to do in the course of our work. If we err, there are processes for you to deal with us with. So I, in principle, have nothing against that. If I see a situation where the Peace Council and other groups are interacting with all other bodies. The security services are also planning some operations. It's even better that they have called our attention to some of the operations they are. If there was no attempt to impose anything on us, I don't see why I should cry wolf.
A group in the Upper East region, the party communicators and the media have by themselves resolved that after the verdict, 3 days after, they will not be coming.
That's an exercise of self-censorship, voluntarily induced. I will not be part of that subculture.
Self-censorship.
I will debate the issues.
I hear you a minute on this, and then we take a break at this point.
Voluntarily induced by
the meetings by the national security, calling media people, calling party chairmen, and even in the Upper East region, party communicators deciding on their own that day 1, day 2, day 3, after the verdict, they will not be on radio about this whole thing.
Well, I'll generalize and say that, yes, peace is really cannot be enforced, whether by the police, the military, or the security agencies. The peace is what the people themselves, bind themselves to and make commitment to. We shall not do this. We shall not do that. I think that's a good effort, and that we should encourage our people themselves to understand that the peace is for their own benefit. The problem is that 80% or so, or maybe around, of the national economy it's in the hands of government. It's operated by government. So there's so much clamor to want to go there. But talking about, I believe that a time will come in this country when presidential, parliamentary elections would not be so hyped because people will be looking at more useful things for themselves, how to live there. And then the issue of justice, it's a very tidy thing. Everybody says we want justice, but whose justice?
Exactly.
You know, and that is really the point that we should be urging our people. We have so many types of justice. There's the mob justice, there's the jungle justice, there was all that.
We are in court, so we are for the justice that emanates from the courts.
So there can be only one justice, and that justice is, I think it's Lord Denny who says, should be justice according to law.
All right.
The law and the constitution has been set up. 9 gentlemen have been set up to produce a verdict. When they come, that is it. We are bound. You cannot say that when their decision is fair, I will accept. When their decision is just, they're fair. It's presumed to be just.
All right.
Because that is the standard.
So there's justice in winning and there's justice in losing as well.
Absolutely.
And
because there's a right to, you see, in a democratic process, those who lose, they say that it is also, they also serve who stand and wait.
All right.
NPP went in for how many years? They came back. NDC went into, 8 years. They came back. So what is the problem?
Yes, the point is that the justice that we are talking about is as if our court dispense something else.
Yeah.
But for justice. Our courts don't dispense palm wine. They dispense justice. So once you are there, it's justice that will emanate from there.
All right. Now, we're taking a break here. And when we return, we'll look at where all of this noise about power sharing, all-inclusive, winner should not take all, and unity government is coming from. But I need to mention, my attention is being drawn that if you read the news story by the Herald, you find that they mentioned Delta Airlines charging, double airfares. They mentioned Emirates Airlines, and they spoke about lot of travels to Europe, but people coming in, the traffic coming in is very, very free. Not many people are coming in, and that the people who are traveling are mainly expatriates. And actually, one of the editors is asking that if we want, we can confirm with the immigration service officials and see what happens. All right, so we'll be right back after this break. All right, you're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and your comments are welcome 1422 and also through newsfile at myjoyonline.com and on our Facebook wall. Let me read a few of them to you. This one from Manfred Adair. He says that, Samson, I think the police and other security agencies are even causing more panic and fear in the country. Well, it is the behavior of the citizens that is getting them on the alert that they are presently. The majority of you are in a hurry to talk about the power sharing or unity government thing. We'll get to it shortly. This one says, Edmond Ajuman writes, I am shocked that Ghanaians are not looking at post-verdict governance and the outlook of our challenged economy if one of the parties win. As for the peace industry, the least said about it, the better. There are quite a number of you too who don't like all the peace preaching, but it is the society that's reflecting them, isn't it? This one says that lawyer Ayikwe Otu, you are simply the best. Congratulations. Okay, we have gone over that week, so let's bring the discussion back here. This one says Abdullahi Muhammad Awal says the activities of the police are in the right direction. They should not take anything for granted. For unchecked behavior of one person can plunge the whole nation into a state of anarchy and unrest. All right, thank you for your messages. There are those of you who are suggesting, Abdul Wahadu Jr., you say that, I think if Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Nigeria were all once like Ghana, very peaceful. If they had done such kind of preparation to meet any possible outcome of that nature, they wouldn't have had such lives lost. Indeed, the security men are up and doing. Thank you very much. Fuseini Safiano says the U.S. Embassy should be charged for causing fear and panic in Ghana, especially at this crucial time when the verdict is about to be delivered. And you're also saying the NDC must stop their face-saving tactics and prepare. Okay, I won't read that bit of it. You are becoming a judge in the matter. And maybe I take a final one. Mohammed Tanko says the U.S. has every right to inform its citizens of potential danger. So let's all just shut up and make sure we are contributing to peace. Thank you for those messages. I'll get to some of them by email shortly. Now, let's come to the question or suggestions of is it all-inclusive, winner must not take all, power sharing, or unity government? We have heard the Archbishop Gabriel Palmer-Buckle suggest that in the next three years, he would wish that if this is the way to protect the peace of the country, let's have a unity government, so to speak. And you have heard Dr. Kwabena J. also suggest, has he been misconstrued? Has he been misread by what he said? And Kofi Abochi, we played his sound to you. He says the bane of our political problems is the winner takes it all syndrome. Okay, let's listen to Mr. Kofi Abochi briefly, and also I think we can take a Palmer-Buckle, and then we'll come to this discussion.
The reality has been that unlike other jurisdictions, where monies donated for political causes are given without expectation necessarily of personal returns, experience under the 92 Constitution has shown that politicians have come to depend on the investment, and I use the word advisedly, of private citizens and corporations with the expectation that a successful capture of power would result in the reimbursement and profiteering of those investors. Invariably, therefore, the absence of a structured system of funding of political parties in Ghana, coupled with a failure to adopt a policy approach to the compensation of political actors for pre-electoral services, have led to the negative subcultural behavior manifested in the winner-takes-all business. The consequence has been that electoral loss has been equated to surrender in warfare, with its concomitant effect. The effect of these factors are further reinforced by the feedback generated on the adoption of a winner-takes-all attitude as a political strategy, and how these are exploited by political actors to secure electoral advantage. Mr. Chairman, knowing what the prospect of victory offers, candidates in elections make promises whose fulfillment can only be guaranteed by dislodging opponents from occupied positions and depriving them of entitlements secured under contracts and other engagements.
And that's Ernest Kofi Abochi. He's a senior lecturer at the Gimpa School of Law. Now, let's hear the Archbishop Gabriel Palmer-Buckle, what he also had to say about the suggestions for a unity government.
Ya masi ebe titi omanu enti se bibisa ebe ma omanu awa atitia na ye baya na ze yeko na wo mumu enka se mumienye baako na afedie ye mu omanu se nia ese ne se nia fata ubisa mi a ebe de se obi be kana so meka ene se enfie miensa akai ye wo unity government kra anke be yefe ye nyina na ye adwuma enti 2016 na afedie ya dwene ho say ye go back to party politics ka be ya mede enti me mpa bo me bo ane say afanu no nyina omo nwene o man ni ye di ho na omo nka say ya hunam no man no dodo na ya ka bo ya pese ye som ama o man ni ewie pe me gidi say Ghana fo nyina ye be da mo wase o tu be ka we kra ntema anka wa hwi ye kra otimuano baby bianca enye nanso sisi a e dia ko otimuafo no so mo bu asem nanso ye ni a ye traso bia o ma yenko ye mo mpae Mama ya moye homody. Mama ya near who ya ninkita ho, young winning. Ye ha, a baby among mine, and I yen. And he medium one does wapa, one does work as ye. Ghana, your mind beer, Yamia Shirai.
All right, and that's Palmer Buckle, and I had already told you, summarize what he said. It is his wish that if this is the way to peace, if this is the price for peace, let's have a unity government for the next 3 years. And he thinks that the people will be happy for that instead of any disturbances. Now, let's take the very final comments from Kwabena Adjei, who is Dr. Kwabena Adjei, who is the chairman of the National Democratic Congress. He was speaking at the NPP's 21st anniversary flag-raising ceremony.
I think that something that makes us insecure is the fact that usually the winner takes it all. Now, from now, don't let the winner take it all. Let us share. This country belongs to all of us. Government change. What I've seen is that no king lasts forever. The people will be fed up one day. So let us be patient. Let us talk to each one of us. I know that for us in the leadership, for us alone, there will be no problem. The problem comes from our followers.
All right. So, Dr. Kwabena Adjei, I start with Mr. Ikotu.
Well, we've had these things before. We used to talk about union government as what Achampon thought would bring peace. The people roundly rejected it when we put it to a referendum. President Kufuor did very well when he spoke about all-inclusive government and brought people like Dr. Ndum and the rest on board. Others served in the cultural commissions and all that. He did his best. So we are aware. In fact, I was waiting to watch the insert, and I think Kwabena Adjei was not joking. He seemed to be very serious with and passionate with the way he put it. I thought it was one of those things that was said on a friendly platform for yesterday, or is it 2 days ago? But he appears to be quite serious in what he's saying. Unity government is okay. I think we tried it by capturing something into our constitution, what we call the National Development Planning Commission, as a way of getting people to go there. But again, political games after elections create the impression that it's only people of your kind who you want to bring onto this kind of commission. So you find that the chairman may be a very stout sympathizer or a member of the party, and most of the people who go there are ministers and things like that. We need to look at it. Again, there's something, a dietic principle of state politics, which says that upon coming to office within 2 years or so, you have to come out with your own program as to how you want this country to develop. Again, we have manifestos, parties campaign on manifestos. I tell the people, we're going to give you, for example, free SHS, education and things like that. Now the people buy into it. Then you bring the opposition and they come and tell you, why we don't believe in anything free, Could you come together then to think along the same lines? These are the things that we should be looking at. Perhaps to me, if we strengthen the National Development Planning Commission and bring on other people and turn it into a think tank where people there will talk and advise the president, honestly. Because if you even go to the Council of State, I don't think that the people who go there, apart from those who are elected, are very, very independent of maybe the reigning government. So let's look at the National Development Planning Commission again. Look at the personnel, see whether we can get people there to go and work. But for an all-inclusive government, it depends upon the leader of a party. President Kufuor was able to do it. Now we have seen, is it J. Nana, somebody at the, what's the name, Professor J. Nana?
Nana
Opoku-Agyeman,
Education Minister.
I don't remember that he was associated closely with the NDC, but he's now serving. As for Nana Oyelita, we know where the husband is coming from, and maybe a sympathies.
She's not the husband.
Yeah, he's the husband.
She's not the husband. She's got the right to decide which
we
party
know
she
where the
associates
husband is
if she
coming
wants
from.
to do so.
So I know what I'm saying. So she is not really somebody from outside, you know. So I was thinking that President Mahama has spoken about it all this while. He's gone ahead to constitute his government. And I don't see the all-inclusiveness that he's spoken about all these while. To be honest, I mean, I'm not a member of the party. Nana Tudazi and Malba are here. Maybe they can give us some names which we have not looked at. So if they are serious, all this while, now that we are waiting for the judgment, like some people are saying, is it because somebody has looked through the crystal ball and he thinks it's about time to share? That is where I'll end my submission for now.
Let me bring to you how some of the people see this, and I spoke about this survey that I did on my wall, and you had in excess of 400 people, you know, voting about it, but through a certain process of eliminating double voting and overvoting, we came to 340 or 50 of them, and 97% of them votes against any such arrangement. They say it should not be done. Now, listen to some of the comments. Kamara Makama says, the rhetoric on power sharing is a clear manifestation of our arbitrariness and lack of focus as a people. At this juncture of our dispensation, discussions about power sharing is unrealistic, misplaced, and unnecessary. What Ghanaians, and for that matter, those in the lower echelons of our social and economic structure are concerned about is not power sharing. Power sharing without economic prosperity and employment for the youth will not work. There are other comments of cynicism, criticism, that this is just a way, if it does happen, where all the the political opponents come together and loot.
Well, let me say that there is a distinction between power sharing and all-inclusiveness. Power sharing is that you ask the opposition or the other party to bring you names who should be appointed as ministers in addition to your ministers. That is where you share power, to the extent that you can have a president from another party and a prime minister of another party. But all inclusiveness is recognizing the role of certain individuals in the other party who you think can assist. And you may pick one or two of them. That is where you do some kind of... So I agree with them. It's not a case of trying to share power completely, that you bring me ministers and I would also bring you my ministers, and then we go together and share. We haven't gotten to that crisis kind of situation in Zimbabwe, in Kenya, and the rest, where that was the only option. Both parties wanted to share. I do not think that Ghana has gotten there yet. I would opt for some all-inclusiveness, as President Kufuor did.
So I'm asking, what becomes of our democracy now? You make nonsense of it if you attempt of any of such arrangements.
Yeah, you just spoke in my mind. I've told you that we either believe in the Constitution or we don't believe in it. And we believe in the constitutional order that we've set for ourselves, or we abandon it. You understand? And our commitment to multi-partyism should be unshaken. I earlier on indicated my concern about my good friends, i.e., I used to speak there, and I'm saying that in 1992, we faced a similar situation. Christian Council, came along with the, the losing party, that is at the time, the NPP, Professor Dubois. I was in the meeting. It was a very interesting but very, very, very heated meeting. And Christian Council urged strongly that, having regard to the polarized situation and the tension, we should have some kind of power sharing and allow to go on for another 3 years, in spite of the Constitution. going for 3 years without, before we probably try another election or something like that. It seemed to be winning the day. And of course, we had won, our side had won. So we were also agitated. Until Mr. Darocha, out of the blue, contrary and against all the views of his colleagues with whom he came, said he wants to put his thoughts on table. That he disagrees with us, the whole view that we as a people, we've agreed on multi-partyism, we must be committed to it. Under our system, it's first past the, the post. And we must show our commitment to it. And that his view is that we should, for those who have lost, they should stand by and wait. I tell you that in 2000 election, when we lost, I think I've said this before here.
Yes, you have.
Yes, we lost the election. That is 2 terms after. I mean, I sat in the office with some colleagues. We were having a chat, but that was what was on our mind. I recall what that gentleman said, the turn will come. NPP came into power. You see, so we should show very strong commitment to it. I'm saying that this was a founding member or a founding person of IEA. So when I hear the IEA come together, now they're talking about, you see, I think that there were 2 things being confused. I heard Mr. Kofi Agbochi talk about concentration of political power in one party. You see, that is totally different from what they were talking about the abuse. You know what you're talking about? Abuse of that power. You get me? If you are talking about abuse of that power, the total power, there are many ways of addressing that. But talking about concentration of power in one party, that is for a period. You get me? And the concept of the fact that we run a period and you are no more a president, it must be developed. But I would say that union government, as they rightly said, we tried it here. This country, everybody rejected it, along with General Achampon, who brought it.
There are suggestions that if the national chairman of the NDC will make this suggestion at this critical time, if a minister like Fifi Kwete will also agree with it, if the president, John Mahama, earlier had suggested something like that, then it means people are seeing into what might happen.
Yeah, but this is the point I'm making. You know, I really didn't even want to go along, appear to be commenting on what Archbishop said. I mean, for me as an Anglican, we don't challenge our priests at all. I wouldn't want to.
Let me be straight with you that there is some anxiety that if it did happen, that the NDC lost the petition, that's why they are planning the grounds for that.
Well, I don't want to respond to that because that is not the expectation of NDC anyway. That's not. We will not. And, but the point I will make is that, you see, the Archbishop said something that in spite of his proposal, it was his humble proposal that maybe we should try union government for some 3 years. But he ended up that with prayer and dialogue, we can sail through. I'll go along with him on that. With Koblaje, in his talk, I also listened to him. He said, look, the winner takes all is all gold and what not. What was his solution? He said, more education. We should educate with us, no problem. But we should educate our people. You know, I thought he was going to say...
From now on, let us share power.
Yes, no. I'm saying that I thought that he was going to say, like, that we're going to, foreign minister, go to this person or whatnot. I think that we should show greater commitment to our constitutional order and go through it for a period. We've gone through this constitutional period for only, 20 years. You understand? The US and whatnot, they've gone through 200, 250 years. It's because they've kept to it. And that when the fact that you lose power or gain power doesn't give you the all in all over all the people all the time. It's only for a period. And I would say that I would pray for greater commitment to our constitutional order, greater commitment to our multi-party system that we've all agreed upon, and that we shouldn't be wavering. just at the time, that's the point. 3 days to verdict. They say, oh, maybe we shouldn't be waiting for the election, the results at all. We should look at the possibility of, sharing power or whatnot, left or right. It doesn't show commitment to the cause. The decision of the court, the Supreme Court decision, is also part of the constitutional order. All right. We must be prepared to face it.
Abdul Malik, Ephraim Gaffa says that these power-sharing singers should be practical and spare us the fantasy. People are very skeptical about it and say, in such a system, if there was any such arrangement, the politicians would simply scratch each other's back and then, dissipate our money.
Well, they are entitled to that assessment of the situation. But you see, apart from Palmer Boko, who I think was more categorical.
That is so.
In terms of the form of governance or government, I'm not too sure you get the same sense from what Kobnaji and Fifi Kwete are saying.
Kobnaji said, let's share power from now on.
Yes, but what is the anatomy of that animal called uni government? Where is it? I don't see it. He didn't give specifics. And Mr. Ayiko too properly said we should draw a line of the extension between all-inclusiveness and unity government and power sharing on one side. This is right. Because we don't have anything now, real specifics to deal with. What we have is the constitutional arrangement embodied in the 1992 Constitution. And that does not talk about power sharing or union government the way I suspect some people are pushing it, particularly if you listen to Palmer Boko carefully. So really, there's nothing on the table to interrogate, my candid opinion. There's absolutely nothing if we are talking of the substantive thing. What have they given us? They haven't told us anything. The animal doesn't have any...
That's how it starts. That's how the discussion starts.
Yes, but you see, if it's like a proposal, constitutional proposal as B, then we are interrogating. Achampon's unit government was fatal because, you see, he was talking of APC, as if we had headache. The army, police, and civilians to be integrated into a form of governance. It was fatally doomed to failure from beginning to the end. Subsequent to that, I remember Akufu came in with Tinegov, trying to remove the army police elements out of it. We must stick to the present constitutional arrangement. If a president desires to bring in expertise from other political parties or social groups, that's fine. The Constitution doesn't frown on that. So I think that's what we should stick to. I'm not too comfortable with a union government or unity government or power sharing arrangement. And Mr. Daisy recalled the meeting. He's right. It was the Catholic bishops who were pushing the union thing because of the tension that had arisen after the elections. Sometimes people say it's the MPP. It's not fair. They did not. They decided to do business with government. And I have a publication here. In fact, it was Ben Epson who reported. I also did a contribution. Darocha, on their concerns, urged the government to pay priority attention to compilation of a new voters register, the issue of citizens' identity cards, and the drawing up of a clear timetable for the next elections. He also called for a really independent electoral laws which will conform to the constitutional provisions. Okay? He also suggested that serious consideration should be given to all political exiles and that they should be given the opportunity to return home and contribute to the national development efforts. The PVOB had even asked for the withdrawal of the stolen verdict publication. Darocha's response was that no, whoever has a contrary view can also document their side of the story. PV was worried about ugly noises in the media and political platforms. That was when Darocha made that famous statement, which I think that's where I might have picked that whole thing from in terms of ugly noises. This is what he said. He said,
on the platform,
these are what we call ugly noises. Politics which does not contain ugly noises is uninteresting. If we really want multi-party politics to thrive, We must tolerate people's views. Let them talk. It's better than throwing bombs.
Yeah.
You remember, you were there, I wasn't there.
there.
We were only reporting. So really, the party NPP had not gone insisting on a unity government or a formula for power sharing. That's not what they had gone there to do.
No, but just correction.
Let-
Just a correction.
Okay.
You see, but the point I'm making out there is that he did not go along with the Catholic bishops'
Yeah, he did not.
proposals.
Yes, that's I see. I agree with
He
you.
said,
Let me-
he said, let the
I'm
NDC
only
run,
reinforcing
after that, we'll come.
what I've done is to reinforce the point you made.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me go to the phone lines now. I've got Mr. Ernest Kofi Abochi on the line, a senior lecturer at the Gimpa Law School. Good morning and welcome to Newsfile, sir.
Good morning, Samson. How are you?
I'm good. You at that lecture, you know, sought to diagnose the problems in our political system, and you spoke about the winner-takes-all situation and what you call, the word you use advisedly, the investments that people make into these parties, campaigns, and seeking to reap some benefit. But is it your suggestion that if winner takes all is a problem, we should go for no winner takes all?
Well, thank you, Samson. And first of all, let me extend my greetings to all the fine gentlemen you have in the studio, who are all my friends.
All right.
Good morning to all of you.
Yeah.
Now, I just need to say that I think the discussion is slanting in a direction I suspect may not be the intentions of the other speakers to this topic, and certainly not my intention. It's not what I suggested at my lecture. First of all, there's nothing like unity government as far as our constitution is concerned. Second of all, it was not the suggestion under my platform.
Yeah.
And therefore, as far as I'm concerned, what we discussed at the IEA lecture was to speak of political inclusiveness. It is a different ballgame from unity government.
Sure.
Political inclusiveness as opposed or as contradistinguished from the exclusivity we have. We need to face one fundamental reality. Since 1992, at the end of every election, we have a new government basically pushing out from entitlements, from contracts, from offices, all persons who are perceived to belong to a certain political ideology which is opposed to theirs. What we've had, therefore, is that phenomenon which has been characterized as winner takes all. A new government basically just hijacks the entire system, distribute resources, distribute entitlements, and basically ensures that its followers have access to all the things that the others lack. That is the suggestion that informed the discussion, which is why we suggested that the winner-takes-all policy should be stopped. And we actually, for me, my paper sought to diagnose some of the reasons that leads to this. And among others, we suggested the fact of political political compensation. We have not, as a country, dealt with the issue of political compensation very well. If people support parties and provide services for parties in the lead up to elections, and parties come to power, how do we compensate these people? We have not dealt with that particular question, and that is at the base, or that is the fundamental question we need to address, because what happens is that these people invest, and I use that word advisedly, as I said earlier, but they do invest. Contractors do invest in parties. Ordinary people do invest in parties. Some provide services, some provide resources, some provide finances. If these parties come to power, there's a constant expectation that they're going to be paid back. That is what partly also pushes the winner takes all. Because when these parties come to power, they're compelled at that point to ensure all their pays, to ensure that they sort of compensate these people. And that is what leads to the appointments, of people into positions they otherwise may not be qualified for. That is what leads to the contract abrogations and reassignment of contracts to new party faithfuls. That is what leads to persons being retired compulsorily even when they are not due for retirement. These are realities.
All right.
The lecture sought to basically diagnose and propose.
All right. Ms. Abochi, Nana Atudazi has a question for you.
Yeah. Good morning, Kofi.
Good morning.
I think we've missed you here. That's the problem. But don't you think that the whole timing of this discussion of the inclusiveness governance it's problematic? I mean, 5 days, 6 days to a verdict that you are raising this, and then also the point that you made about concentration of political power in one party, in the hands of one party, yes, it's a concern. But when you move on to say that in that case, then there should be greater all-inclusiveness, then somebody is bound to raise the issue, like you said, that then does that mean that, well, one group is quote chopping, so that's not good. So all of us, let's get on board to chop.
Okay. How do you address his concern? And then when he's done, Mr. Aikoto also has a question for you.
Okay. Well, first of all, let me just say that I got an invitation from the IEA to make a presentation on this topic. I did not choose the topic. The topic was suggested to me. I basically presented it. So
you
I had
did not choose the time.
Really with the timing. And I found it quite interesting that on 3 different platforms, we're talking about the same thing, which was quite interesting. I'm not quite sure how it happened, but I think that maybe these are people who are thinking about some of these issues, especially in the light of our political development. But it has nothing to do with anything. And let's face it, nobody knows what is going to happen on Thursday. I think it is a discussion just designed to get us talking about a fundamental problem, which is what partly also makes our elections so heated.
Okay.
It makes our elections so much of a, we're always on the brink. And I think everyone is talking about how do we get from that particular political quagmire to a point where elections will become a norm and a normal part of our governance process, as opposed to a do and die affair every time we are the 4-year period of coming to go for elections.
Great.
So
let's hear Mr. Aikoto.
I was invited.
Yeah.
Yes, Kofi, the question of compensation. Who do you think should do that? Are we going to set up a fund when you, the contractor, was seen actively supporting the other party, and then I come into power, and you are talking about compensation? Is it not who wins, who should compensate?
Well, that's a good question. But what is happening now, Honorable, what is happening now is that we do not deal with the question of compensation until after the election. Now, once the election is won by a party to whom you've contributed, what happens is that party would have to invariably ensure that you are properly compensated. Mm-hmm. Proper compensation implies that you're not just giving back what you sowed. You're actually giving back way more than you sowed. Because let's face it, investment, and again using that word in this context, investment is a risk. You put in money, you may lose the money. When the party loses power, you've lost the money.
Yes.
When the party wins power, you don't have an expectation of exactly that money being given back to you. You have an expectation of much lofty compensation, and therefore you get way more than you gave. That is why people are given offices and positions and contracts with all kinds of things we can't even discuss now. What we are suggesting at this stage is that if, for instance, we have a structured scheme of funding for the political parties, they would be able to pay for services. If a party hires someone to draft a policy strategy to inform its, let's say, its manifesto, for instance, and that person is paid as a consultant, that person should be in no expectation of further payment by way of compensation after the elections. But if that person provides a service free of charge, I'm doing this just in case you win. Remember, I'm part of the team. Eventually, if that party comes to power, that party will have to remember that person who provided the service. And that is where somebody will be dislodged from a position which otherwise he occupied because a new person has to fit in for services provided before the election.
Okay, Ms. Aboche, in a minute, tell us what kind of structure are you looking at when you talk about all-inclusiveness as against winner takes all? Practically, what should happen?
Well, I suggested 2 key things. The first one I suggested is the issue of party funding. I think it's an issue we have to revisit. How do we fund our political parties? We assume that somehow they'll make money and run their thing and everything will be fine. It is not true. Somebody pays for it. And whoever pays for it will have to be paid for. It is an inextricable link with corruption we have to deal with.
Now, I'm talking about the structure, all-inclusiveness as regards the formation of a cabinet, for example.
Absolutely. Remember, by the Constitution, the president decides who comes into his government. So we can't even decide that somebody must be there, that we must have a percentage and proportions, and we can't do that.
But what we are suggesting is policy.
Absolutely, and I'm just saying, for instance, at the lower levels, why should a new president in power lead to the dismissal of somebody, say, in the district who is just an occupant of a civil service position, for instance?
All right.
But as we speak, those things are happening. I'm just saying, apart from the political level, we should find a way of getting the lower levels of government interference, because that is where these things actually happen, the contract abrogations, etc. They happen at the lower levels, and it's because new people are in, everything must change. And it's not just this government, it is not just the previous government, it is probably all the governments since 92. And I think that's something we have to deal with.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you so much.
Ernest Kofi Abochi is a senior lecturer at the Gimpa Law School. Now, MTN understands that you are one of a kind, and also that everyone is different, and that you have different tastes, and also you have different preferences, even in the way you use your phone. So because MTN understands this uniqueness about you, about your tastes and preferences, whatever your likes are, MTN has something very special just for you. Just dial *515# *515# today, and they will treat you to awesome offers uniquely designed for you, from airtime, SMS, and data. MTN just for you, uniquely yours. Follow MTN on Twitter at MTN Ghana, and you're welcome to a world of many, many possibilities. MTN everywhere you go. Now, Ebi, let's talk about, do you think, for example, that Mr. Dr. Kwabena was misunderstood?
Samson, let me say that be it union government, unity government, political inclusiveness, the timing is bad. This shouldn't be the time for these comments to be coming. Knowing that there's a matter in the Supreme Court, and some people will ask, is it that these persons know what is going to happen? That is why they are proffering these suggestions. So this is something, and Ayuko made a point, has always come up. Now we need to find out, why is it coming up at this time? Take Komnaje made a very useful statement, but poor him. Listen to the tabloids. Listen to the MPP papers. Oh, NDC know they will lose, so they are preparing for unity government. Timing is wrong.
That's an interesting point.
Look, and you see, this whole idea of power sharing, unity government, and all these things, again, flies in the face of the Constitution, because the Constitution envisages political parties as well as competition.
I've read comment by some people who say, I voted for John Mahama. I did not vote for Nana Akufo-Addo.
Good.
Some say I voted for Nana Akufo-Addo. I did not vote for John Mahama.
Exactly.
I do not want to see the two of them in one boat.
One boat. Because political parties are supposed to be structured in such a way as to have solutions to all problems. So if you are saying that you need somebody to come from MPP to solve power crisis, it means that you are not fit to be a political party. A political party must have answers. And you see, when you read the Constitution, Article 55(4), it will tell you how the political party is supposed to be composed. Every political party shall have a national character. A membership shall not be based on ethnic, religious, religion, or other sectional divisions. So to say that power is concentrated on in one political party is wrong, because that political party is supposed to be national in character, it's supposed to include everybody. So the power is not concentrated in one political party as in one human being. Because that political party...
It is concentrated in one political party that has members from diverse backgrounds.
So if you understand, exactly. So if you understand the composition of a political party, you will be making this point. And that is where I disagree with my good friend Abochi, that power is if it is concentrated in one political party, there's nothing wrong, because that political party is broad in nature, is wide in character. So there's nothing wrong with that. So for me, the calls coming at this time is in bad taste. So if we have a situation where one political party wins the elections, the election petition, now calls will be coming from the other side and said, oh, but we all agree that there will be power sharing, making nonsense again of the judicial process. And I think that those who are calling for it have placed this country in a very critical stage, in a critical situation. And you see, our judges are also listening. it is so murky. It's bad at this time.
I see.
You don't make those comments at this time.
In 30 seconds, what do you make of the staff of the Judicial Service?
Oh, that's that I have made a point that the timing again for them is bad. I think that they will become villains. They will become the most hated group of persons if they embark on this strike. Because the country is all waiting with bated breath for the ruling. And if they think that they want to use this occasion to get what they want, I'm telling them it will backfire. What I can advise for them to do is they can go on strike in all the other courts, but leave the Supreme Court untouched and then let the verdict come. Because at this point, if they succeed in thwarting what is going to happen on Thursday, they will be seen as nation wreckers. They will be viewed in a negative light, and what they are requesting for, nobody will have sympathy for them. If they think that they want to use this to draw sympathy to themselves, it will rather backfire.
I see. Now, what do you say about that briefly?
Well, briefly, I'll say I'm a founding member of JUSAC, one of those who founded their organization. I would say that.
How did you get in there?
Well, you ask them; they'll tell you. It's
I know you are an officer of the court as a lawyer, but you cannot belong to their group.
Lawyers, judges, and whatnot. Encourage them. We went around the country. Mr. Newsfile was the first president, and all that. That's another bit of our own history. I tell you, but I think that the point must be made that over the last 48 sittings, or 4 months, 6 months or so, the court, the judicial service, the judiciary itself become the focus of this country. And people have risen to come to accept it as something worth, having in the country. And I think that nothing will be done by any member of the judiciary, be it a judge, judicial staff, or a lawyer, to lower the estimation of people in this. I think that it is very important. We've all put up our best as lawyers, as judges, as staff, and work to present this image.
Mr. Akoto, they feel this is the best time to strike. They never have any such opportunity. They deserve what they are asking for. That's what they think.
Well, in all fairness to them, you strike the iron when it is hot.
Yeah.
And therefore, the timing for them is to really, create a panic situation so that desperate measures will look for some shake. But I do not think it will affect the judgment, in the sense that I'm aware that judges were trained to type their own judgments. And therefore, each judge can type his own judgment. Secondly, it's a matter of calling the case and then going ahead and delivering the judgment. So for that particular... Oh yes, for that, I'm saying that for that particular case,
no, can you clarify that it is possible? It is possible for the judges to get in there and just call the case and go ahead and
they just call the case. I'm stating. The judge can call a case, yes. The Nana Akufo-Addo, 2 others versus so and so.
The protocol greeting their entrance will all not be followed.
It will all not be followed because it's a desperate situation. I'm saying that if they want to give this judgment on 29th, the strike will not affect them. One, because they can type their own judgments, and I believe all the judgments are by now typed. Working in to call the case and go ahead and deliver, it will be done. But I sympathize with them. I've said it elsewhere, that I am told that all these migrations, all the SSS, the spine, single spine, they appear to be the only people who have not really seen, value for the work they are doing. So perhaps they believe this is the best time to draw attention to themselves. But if it is meant to thwart the giving of the judgment, I don't think that it can come on. In fact, any lawyer can even go there and take the case and call it. Any lawyer in the court can call a case. What is it that you are doing? You just want to know that we are dealing with
them. All right, Aduma, you want to say something about
they can sign and
a few seconds about this intended strike? Okay. Now, you have also heard me announce on this show in the last 2 weeks that multimedia group, the Educare scholarships are available now. It is open now. So if you have someone who is brilliant but is needy needs to go to school but cannot afford, and I'm talking about going to SSS, going to JHS. All you need to do now is simply get in contact with any of the multimedia outlets across the country. You can contact Love FM, Inshira FM in Kumasi, Joy here at Doom, or Multi TV here at Kokomlemle, or you can send an email to educarefund@myjoyonline.com. Email to educarefund@myjoyonline.com. What you need to do is write an application letter showing why you should be considered in not more than 100 words. Attach terminal reports, admission letters, and written testimonials from current and or previous schools, and you just might stand a chance of enjoying a sponsorship from multimedia. Thank you. We'll take a quick break and return with some of your text messages and the last leg of the discussion, the founding of Ghana and sentencing to death by hanging in 2013 Ghana. You're welcome back to Newsfile. This is your Joy News channel on Multi TV, and you're also listening on Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. You're listening to us also or watching on ABN TV in Europe, and you are also following us on the streams as well. Now, you've got to stop buying printers, scanners, and photocopiers. Stop doing that. You've got to be smart and lease them. You lease them from Valex Lease Equipment Limited. Now, with Valex Lease Equipment Limited, you can lease a modern multifunctional equipment which can scan, copy, and print. There is no fixed rental charge. You only pay as you copy or print, and scanning is absolutely free. You can scan directly to email and open with pen drive for free. Copy and print wireless to the same equipment. That's interesting, isn't it? And the good thing about it all is that the toners, the cartridges, repairs and maintenance are all supplied free of charge, and they are nationwide. Locate Valex Lease Equipment Limited at Osu Akweje near XFM, or email them at valexv@yahoo.co.uk, or call them 0540-482-857 or 0540-482-838. We are refreshed by Lipton tea, keeping us very energetic to be able to do the discussion the way we go about it every Saturday morning here. Now, this message from Gabi Asare Chirdako, it says, looking into the crystal ball, when you have one party controlling the executive arm, another party having both the speaker and parliamentary majority, I suppose you can describe that as constitutionally endorsed power sharing. Who knows, that could enhance the oversight responsibility aspect of the legislature. Another one from Ni, he says, all inclusiveness is essentially a product of leadership style. The political system and climate is operationalized by the leaders we choose. Let's assess the psyche and style of our leaders against their actions. It is only the so-called moderates in opposition who will be offered positions in the name of inclusiveness. Let's be sincere. Wolves in sheep clothing do not bleat. Very, very interesting messages coming in there. And this one from Kuku says that we should reject any calls for a unity or union government. We need opposition parties to act as one of the checks of the party in power. If there is corruption in an all-party government, who will call the other to account? A dose of inter-party tension is healthy for democracy. King Gau writes, winner always takes all. NDC has taken all as declared by the EC. NDC will continue to take all if declared by the court, I think. Now, Awal Abdullah says something, the security services have a responsibility to protect life and property, and I think that's what they are trying to do with the recent parade across the nation, and let no one think we have too much peace and nothing can go wrong. That would be a recipe for anarchy. Benjamin Bonte writes, Ghana's problem is not the winner takes all theory. Likewise, all-inclusive government is not the solution. We need an action plan to get our priorities right and transform our economy. Ghana deserves better, if not the best. I'll take a last one from Theophilus Ando. He writes and says, Dr. Kobne Jays just said, the people will be fed up with us. Samson, most learned people are already fed up with their others and are getting fed up little by little. Bob Marley said, if you can't fool the people, you can't fool the people all the time. Everything that has a beginning has an end, Mr. Politician. Thank you very much for those messages. And now let's go back and listen to Professor Michael Okwe delivering a lecture at the NPP's 31st anniversary lecture at the Osu Presby Hall. Let's hear him about the founding of Ghana.
Ghana's leaders and the heroes of our independence met in Sorbonne on 4th August 1947. Pagrams, J.B. Dankwa, William Oforianta, Edward Akufo-Addo, Akuaje, R.S. Blade, and others, all of whom are progenitors of the Dankwa Busia Dombo tradition, and for that matter, our party today, were the leaders. These people founded Ghana. And Nkrumah, who had been invited by these unsung heroes, became one of the founding fathers by courtesy of their invitation. Kwame Nkrumah left for the United States in 1935. He studied and worked in the United States and England. He returned to Ghana in December 1947 on the invitation of the UGC leaders who paid his fare and expenses, etc. He was the only person on the salary in the UGCs. If something had not been founded, what was he brought down to assist in? The cry for independence reached full blast after 1940s, the 48 rounds. On 28 February 1948.
All right, Professor Michael Okwe, former Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, Abdul Malik. This subject has come up before, particularly when the President Mills was helping with the process or spearheading the process to declare a day in honor of President Nkrumah as the founder of this country. So we have the Founders Day. The subject has come back. Where do you stand?
Yes, but there are other things he said which I think for record purposes I would deal with. But you've invited me to deal with this first. But there are certain factual inaccuracies that are contained in the speech, and I would want for record purposes to deal with them.
Go ahead.
But this thing about founders and founding fathers, and the UGCC and CPP, this is a book written by Nkrumah, I Speak of Freedom, and that was first published in 1961. And chapter 2, titled The Campaign Begins. Now listen to what Nkrumah himself said. The work of the UGCC, combined with the growing economic tension in February 1948, led to a state of affairs which was highly inflammable. Sure enough, at the end of the month, an event occurred which proved to be a decisive step in the struggle for independence. He continued, it was not long, however, before the police caught me. I was arrested during the night at Cape Coast. The police also arrested the other leaders, Dankwa, Ofurata, Akufo-Addo, Akwaje, and Obiche-Bilamte. We were known as the Big Six and were taken off to be detained in various parts of the country. I was taken to Kumasi and then to a lonely part of the northern regions. The last paragraph. That's one to read before I tell you what I'm doing. This was Nkrumah moving the motion for approval on 12 November 1956 at the National Assembly. Portion of the speech, this is what Nkrumah said. Mr. Speaker, we stand on the verge of independence. It is only right that we should pay tribute to those who have made that independence possible. I have spoken in my speech of the very great part played by the Convention People's Party. But I and the party realize the debt we owe to the work which was done by other individuals and other parties. Though we have had deep political differences, it would be wrong if I did not also pay a tribute to those who, while not agreeing with the Convention People's Party, have nevertheless made their contribution towards attaining independence. The great Osei himself recognized the fact that others did some work before he came in and acknowledged the role those people played. He acknowledged the role of the UGCC and the economic situations. What he was talking about was the February 28th routes, the ex-servicemen's thing. So Nkrumah himself did not attempt to monopolize the credit for the independence struggle. We have founding fathers, Nkrumah included, but he was first among the equals. Why? And if you read this thing by Professor Quay, you see, the decolonization process was achieved in the last phase through competitive politics and elections. That's what happened in our case. Our decolonization process was achieved, I repeat, through competitive elections, 51, 54, 56. That informed the divisions. By 57 6th March, it was the CPP that won independence for this country. That's indisputable. The totality of our efforts as Gold Coasters from the 30s, in fact, even before, but if you can start from the 30s, then post-war, it wasn't just the CPP and Nkrumah. I'll be dishonest with history if I don't acknowledge this fact. But the truth of the matter is that because we had to use elections, and the elections were not just mere elections, elections fought on issues. Should we be a unitary state? Should we be a federal state? What were the issues there? So you see, today, the unitary character of the Ghanaian state, the Republican character of the Ghanaian state is attributable to the Nkrumah tradition. But of course, the UP tradition, Dankwa, Busia, now they add Dombo tradition, you cannot say they haven't contributed to our rich political culture. Some of the liberal democratic tendencies and arrangements that we have can also be attributed to that tradition. I sit here, Nkrumah, through a referendum, brought about a one-party state. With the benefit of hindsight, I don't think it was the right decision. I think the CPP was competitive enough to have won elections. That approach was wrong. The PDA, which one can defend within contest, was abused, so it lost its value. That are things that people like us are prepared to admit. If you would permit me, unless you want people to go around, I would want to cure some factual inaccuracies.
Okay, if you can do it briefly, because we need to deal with this.
See, Mr. Professor Okwe said this. For fairness, I must read what he said. Let us now take a look at attempts to assassinate Nkrumah. First, during colonial times, Nkrumah reported a fire in his house. The colonial investigation did not point to arson as a cause. Yet Nkrumah always chose to make political capital out of the event by claiming that his enemies wanted to kill him. That incident happened somewhere around Kukrumemri here. My father incidentally happened to have been present. It was not fire, it was explosion of a grenade. So it was not fire. There was nothing like investigating arson. And the documents are available. Second, there was an alleged conspiracy by Ara Ponsan, Modesta Pulu, and others to stage a coup. If there was enough evidence in this connection, why did Nkrumah not try the offenders before the white judges? Why did he go on to rather have a preventive detention act passed? Then is Austin captured for posterity the minority report by the chairman of the three-man committee who wrote, 1, there was no conspirational association between Mr. Aponsan and Mr. Palu in association with Awaiti, the soldier who was supposed to lead the coup. 2, there did not exist between Mr. Aponsan, Mr. Palu, and Awaiti a plot to interfere in any way with the life or liberty of the Prime Minister of Ghana on the airport before his dispatch to India on 20th December. You see, the problem I have with this is that Professor Kwei, and he's one of the best in terms of history.
Yeah.
I learn a lot from him, and I think he's intellectually also a very honest person. But the truth of the matter is that I find it interesting that he read only 2 paragraphs of the minority report, which was issued by the chairman of the commission, this Granville Sharp commission. He failed to read the majority report, the findings made then of a one Mensah of he was a district magistrate, and Asafuaje. If you read the report, you will see, and maybe it's important I read portions. See, this is the majority report. It says that Lieutenant Amenyo's version of what took place between himself and Mr. Aponsan on the night of the 19th December 1958 at the Labadi Road T Junction is correct one. That Awaiti, Mr. Aponsan, Mr. Palu, and Mr. John Mason Anthony were engaged in a conspiracy to assassinate the Prime Minister, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and carry out a coup d'etat. That neither Mr. Aponsan nor Mr. Palu abandoned their original plan to carry out at a future date an act for unlawful purpose which was revolutionary in character. Indeed, even the minority report, there are portions he didn't read, and let me read that one, significant omission.
Okay.
That Mr. Aponsan and Mr. Palu, I'm coming, as soon as they knew, listen, this is the minority report, that Mr. Aponsan and Mr. Palu had, as soon as they knew that the badges and equipment transaction had been disclosed to the police, abandoned any idea and had no intention of involving themselves further in any such exploits. Final one, please. He also made a point that the attempt to assassinate Nkrumah, the assassin, the would-be assassin, was not actually jumped from a 4th floor of the police headquarters and died. That I find very strange. That was Ametowe. He was tried and found guilty. He went for an appeal and also found guilty. I brought all the court judgments here. You go to 63, 64 court reports. They are all here. So that again does not stand the test of history. The Kunungugu bomb, finally, critical, very critical. He makes a very categorical statement that there was no UP member associated with it. Or he said leading UP member. Again, the court ruling is here. There was Robert Ochre, who was an ex-member of parliament for Amansi East on the ticket of the UP. There was Yao Menu, who was a member of the UP. And the court, then made up of Akokosa, Van Lai, and Akufo-Addo, came to the conclusion they discharged and acquitted Adamafiu, Akwaje, and Kofi Krab. But they convicted Robert Ochre and Yao Menu, incidentally 2 members of the United Party.
All right. Now,
these are documented in the court law reports. I brought all of them here.
So what should be the place of the other members of the Big Six in the history of the country when we talk about founding
When
fathers?
I read Nkrumah's thing, it's clear that Nkrumah acknowledged that they played a role. Indeed, they played a role that laid the basis for the final phase of the independence struggle. So obviously, you cannot ignore them. I'm not one of those. In spite of all my Nkrumah's ideological thing, I think we must recognize them as part of the founding fathers of this great country.
Okay, Mr. Ekwetu, there's a suspicion that if the NPP wins power, it will change what has become the Founders' Day and move it from the monolithic term as it is.
Yes, I would not be surprised at all if they do that. We have been very peeved, with this idea of founders and be talking about monolithic terms and apostrophe before the S. It should be founders, plural. Because the role of the UGCC cannot be underestimated by anybody. They did all the groundwork, including even suggesting the name of Ghana. The eagle, the Ghana symbol and all that. True that these were all preparatory to the final declaration. I agree with Kweku, yes, there were elections to determine, the way forward. And they won. Clearly, if they were seen as elitists wearing suits, and then you introduce smoke everywhere. And then you start talking about Mokola women and teachers. You bring in others. The mass approach. I agree. I could not have seen how any UGCC would have won any elections. It was impossible. Because with this mass group there, about 2/3 of the 1/3, intelligentsia, it was going to be highly impossible. But Nkrumah too was not that transparent on the day he moved the motion. Why didn't he mention those names? If what he has read, he failed to mention the names. He said by other parties, but it has been led largely by the CPP. I don't think it is fair. So I would not be surprised at all, and I'll even spearhead it. Let us remove the apostrophe S and leave it as founders.
There are those who say, look at the biblical account of Jesus' coming. John the Baptist played a very key role.
Yeah.
The apostles were very central, but they don't enjoy the same place as him in the history of the church.
We are comparing apples with mangoes. The man himself said,
pretty close then.
I cannot even lace the sandals of he who is coming. We didn't do that. We brought him down. We paid his passage and paid him money to lead us, to act as a secretary to us. And he turned against us and introduced smoke.
But there were factors for that shift.
I agree.
Which, if you do an analysis of,
ideologically, you did not agree.
Not just ideologically.
His position was very opportunistic.
No, really, that's unfair.
Judge independence.
It's fair to say
it's not accurate.
Let me land.
It's not accurate. It's not accurate.
He's not older than me.
Oh, but I don't have to be older than you.
No. We have all read history. We have all read the history and we know what happened. Independence at the shortest possible time. And independence now. Yes. They are not the same. They are not the same.
Of course
That's
not.
what I mean by opportunism. If you say now, somebody says let's do it gradually. You think the now people
and you say it is not fair to say that these were gradualists and he was a radicalist in
I'm saying that he actually became an opportunist at that stage. The UGCC has set all the parameters. They had a party going all right. What they didn't like was the immediate independence. He said, let's get there gradually. In fact, some political analysts have said that some of the problems we are having was the fast tracking of the independence when we did not have the human capital. When we did not have the human capital.
No, but who was going to determine the time frame? So we should have waited for another 50 years.
That's why I'm saying that he was an opportunity.
That's why they lost the
He took the opportunity. Momentum. He said, now let's go. And the people followed him. There was no way
he
they
was
would
a
have lost.
tactician.
Okay, you could say
strategic
proportion against
not an opportunist.
Against his mentors.
Let's come to the left side of the table.
No. You see, why it's not right is that there were issues. We should look at the issues and find out how come divergence took place.
Thank you, gentlemen. People have formed parties.
No, but when it came, the UGCC was not as big as it was.
Mr. Ekwetu is unequivocal. It's unequivocal in saying that we have thwarted our history. If the NPP gets the next opportunity, they will change this because it's wrong.
Well, I've been laughing throughout, at least in my head, because I mean.
I wanted to say we have distorted our history. Did I say distorted our history?
No.
Distorted the history.
Just with the point that I'm making, that when they win power, they will reset themselves. But they were in power for 8 years. Why didn't they do it?
Oh, we brought the note.
You see, no,
please, you have forgotten the note.
Point. I'm saying that this clearly is a rallying, cry. Very interesting point at this particular time, for whatever reasons, trying to mend fences, get their people around. Professor Quay is a clear apologist for their, their side. He's putting their history in perspectives, and according to him, many things went wrong. You see, but we lived in this country. I was also in this country in state 6 and all that. We had people who were released from prison. Koko has read the history, the records. I'm saying there were people who were jailed, who were detained. When they came out, what they themselves said, confessions they made. Some came, I don't want to mention them, some came publicly said, I don't want, I almost mention them.
Some acknowledge that they brought the bombs in.
How did this? I'm not saying that what they did was right or wrong at the time, but I'm saying that these are factual things. The trial was on one, but what the people themselves said when they were released, it's also part of our history. Exactly. But I think that really, I'm a little disturbed by this whole idea of stirring past, issues. This country had more problems, bigger problems. He's at
the 21st anniversary of the party, and he's tracing its antecedents and seeking to encourage the people to let them know the history.
The veracity or otherwise.
I've told you that from the records which Kweku has read, coupled with factual situations, affirmations by people. Some of the things that Professor Okweb saying, cannot be correct. But that is the view of the UP and MPP. Well, I can't change their view. That is their perception of things. But I think that we should look forward. What can we do? What should we do?
You don't agree with those. You don't agree with those who say that the Mills administration made a mistake by not listening to this other side of the argument as far as the history is concerned.
I'm saying that when you talk about founding father, the reality is that Ghana was landed on the laps of Kwame Nkrumah. 1957 cannot be erased. You understand? There were, for every founding father, there are great grandfathers.
Do you acknowledge how, for example, America's arrangement is about founding fathers?
Yes, but that is why
there are more than 20 of them.
Yes, you give me
but they were in the same boat.
Give me a chance, please.
I don't have a problem. They should be.
There was a time in this country, this argument comes up from time to time. There was a time we did acknowledge, like in the PNDC era, we did acknowledge the role of the various persons. This big debate was on. And as a result of which, we said that, look, let us acknowledge, as a people, we acknowledge the founding roles of all these people. So we created Dankwa Circle. We created Obetebi Lante Circle. We created Akufo-Addo Circle. We created Akwaje Interchange. These are to recognize their way. If MPP thinks that one day, they may come into power and they want to deepen it, fine. But I don't think, that's the point I'm saying, that I don't think that we should be reenacting the debate or crisis about founding fathers and whatnot today. And I find Professor Okwei's historical rewriting, rewriting the history.
Should it be singular or plural? That's the issue. Is it singular or plural?
Oh, with it singular or plural? We have founding fathers, but the lead father is undisputed. That's why no problem.
All right. Now, Ebi, the thing is that until and unless we as a country and the two big traditions, political traditions, can agree on this properly, we'll continue to have this changing. So we need to do the right thing. What do you say?
You see, I have always followed Professor Michael Quay. As an academician, impeccable. As a politician, I have problems with him. And I thought that with his age, he should be moving from a politician to a statesman. These comments, trying to vilify Kwame Nkrumah, is uncalled for. The opportunity was there to extol the virtues of your people.
Well, you acknowledge Nkrumah was a great man.
You see, so you can limit it to that. You can sing praises of your people. But to go to the extent of trying to compare Nkrumah to the other big six, and particularly J.B. Dankwa, you see, Nkrumah was peerless. Professor Michael Quay himself is a preacher man, and he knows the verse that says that many are called, but few are chosen. He knows that very well. And so we could see Nkrumah in that light. We acknowledge that the others did their part. And indeed, Kokubako had just read some piece where he acknowledged the contribution of other persons. But to try to equate Nkrumah to J.B. Dankwa, no. You see, one was a former president and died as, was a president and died as a former president. The other was an opposition leader and died as an opposition leader. So the two are not in the same class. We must acknowledge that history cannot be rewritten. The history has already been written. So Professor Michael Quay cannot now try to rewrite the history for Ghana. It won't happen. He talks about the fact that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was invited by the other 4 or 5 persons to come and contribute.
And that is fact, right?
Yes. It's fact. It's also fact that Per Grant financed the group. Where is his place? Per Grant financed the group. Indeed, I may not be there at that time, but I've read. Per Grant, a merchant, brought them together, basically, first and foremost, to protect, because at that time, the business class, the African businessmen were being marginalized. So he brought them together with their legal minds to see how African or Ghanaian businesses or Gold Coast business can be protected. So the UGC was not, as a group, fighting for maybe self-determination. The UGCC, as a group, as a group, were fighting for increased participation. That is they fought for increased participation, and that's why some of them were voted into legislative councils, and they were content with that. It was Nkrumah who came and said that we must boot out, and that's a self-government now. Are they telling me that they've not heard of the self-government now, and then the shortest possible time? Who wanted to see the exit of the Europeans or the British immediately?
Okay, gentlemen, we have to end this debate here.
Oh, except that it's not fair to Dankwa, who was described as the doyen of Ghana politics. For this,
the man was not a doyen of Ghana politics. In fact, the man could not even win an election in his backyard.
You see, for my friend on the other side,
the man could not. Kokubako, is it not true? He lost elections in his backyard.
Okay.
Indeed, Aaron, constantly beat him.
His contribution.
And how can you be a doyen of Ghana politics when in your own backyard
His contribution goes beyond
party politics?
Exactly. Let's be honest.
Good.
He was not an opposition leader.
So you cannot.
Not the classic type of politician.
You cannot talk about somebody who is a doyen of Ghana politics when he couldn't even win an election in.
Why then do you agree with Keku that you shouldn't look at it from that perspective?
No. He had made other contributions.
All right.
I agree with that.
Okay.
But to be a doyen of Ghana politics, when you can't win your own constituency,
we have very limited time, and I want to invite your comments on the very final issue about the death sentencing of the NPP faithful. The 5 of them had several other sentences that they were supposed to serve in excess of 30 years, but one of them was pronounced to go to be killed through hanging by a Tamale High Court. Now, with very limited time, we can't go through all of the history. But Nana, the issues that come up is that this is a country that since 1993, we have not executed anybody. And for a very long time, the courts have taken a posture to rather give a life imprisonment sentence rather than death. Where we have even sentenced people to death, it has not been executed because our leaders or presidents have been either they've declined on mercy grounds or they are afraid to be the ones who will kill the murderer. We seem to say that we want to join the United Nations countries, about 49% of them, who have voted for no capital punishment. What does this say about our human rights record?
Well, thank you very much. It doesn't dent our human rights record in any way. Our legal system is just being followed. It's as simple as that. In our record books, statutorily, if a person is found guilty of murder, the sentence flows. The judge has to pronounce the verdict. This one, it was a jury trial, I believe. The jury, his own peers, listened to everything and came to a conclusion that they found him guilty or them guilty. The judge had just a duty of pronouncing it. What happens after that? When he says, oh, you are found guilty and shall be hanged by the neck until you die, that's the pronouncement. What happens after that is executive. It's within the realm of the executive. So the executive will have to decide whether it will be put into effect or not. So it only shows that our legal system is flowing. Secondly, I don't know whether the people were convicted as, say, Fuzeni, so MPP member, you have so. Is that how it was? No, these are individuals.
We know what got them to court.
Exactly, exactly. But I'm saying that whether they were MPP, NDC, or there were some Chinese or whatnot, who have committed, our law must be respected, no respect of persons, and that is it. And I feel very sad occasionally when people attribute these are our people. We should go into that. Yes,
people are also talking about the timing.
Oh. No, as for the timing, the court and the laws should not stop because there's some judgment coming. Look, in this country, if the police...
Last week you said that the timing was important in Sir John's non-custodial sentencing.
No, because it has everything to do with the verdict that was coming. This particular, it's the same. But I'm saying that, can you imagine if the police were to say that from today, Saturday, until Wednesday, they are not going to arrest anybody. They are not going to do anything. The courts will not work.
Right.
Until Judgment Day is over. Can you imagine? You can sleep in your house. The law must work.
Mr. I don't know what you have to say about this, but Nana suggests that the court had no option than to hand death sentence.
Yeah. That's all.
I agree with him, and I read the law. Section 304 of the Criminal Procedure Act provides as follows. Form of sentence of death. 1. Every sentence of death shall direct that the person condemned shall suffer death in accordance with the provisions of this section, but need not state the place of execution. B. A certificate under the hand of a registrar that such sentence has been passed, and naming the person's sentence shall be sufficient authority for the detention of such person. 3. The execution may be by hanging. B. Lethal injection. C. Electrocution. D. Gas chamber. Or E. Any other method determined by the court as substituted by Criminal Procedure Code Amendment Act 633, Section 24. I will tell you a history behind this hanging matter and why this thing changed. In fact, I am surprised that I don't even see the firing squad anymore.
That's an amendment.
Okay. Yes, because under the law at the time, you could only hang. And PNDC went and shot somebody. It became a big history. So a big problem began. So they quickly went and changed the law and said, oh, it will even include firing squad. Meanwhile, the man had already lost his life. So any of these things here, A, B, C, D, can be used. Okay. And he is choosing but nobody goes hang in Ghana.
Okay.
There has been a moratorium, and I can assure you, when I was there, we all saw to it that it never happened as it was rightly pointed, since 19so nobody has gone hanged. And it is part of government's position never to engage in cruel and degrading punishment.
Okay.
And I know the NDC government would never go into this hanging
We've got
business.
very limited time now, but tell me, the Constitution Review Commission also looked at this,
yes,
took views of Ghanaians and came to the conclusion that the majority view is that Article 13.1, which is where this law takes its strength from, should be looked at, so that we should replace, in place of death sentence, you should have
so until the amendment, this is the law. Until the amendment, the judge would be doing an illegal act if he had given any other sentence.
I see.
Because if it is death and it is death and it's intention and all the ingredients have been proven, then this is where you go.
So what is our problem? That for a long time we don't execute, we end up, the president might commute it into life imprisonment and maybe subsequently pardon the person and they get released. Because why don't we remove the law?
We are looking at the international best practices where people no longer hang. But you go to America, there are some states who still ensure that you go through the lethal injection or electrocution business. They still do it.
All right.
But for now, Ghana has placed a moratorium. That I can assure you, it won't happen.
Thank you very much.
As you said, 93 was the last time. I have the list here. 19 persons were shot on 17 July 1993. This list is people who were shot from 84 to 93 through trials and judgments by public firing squad, actually. So I'm for, I used to shout, let the blood flow. I was for the execution of people who had committed high treason.
Let the blood flow.
Yes, I was for that, but not today.
Okay.
And the point about timing, did I hear a representative for Bombardi's group on your program, your station, saying that the timing was okay? I agree, because 2008, when Mr. Chikata was convicted, that organization came out and said timing was bad, and I opposed them. So I'm consistent.
Okay.
I agree.
Maybe 30 seconds. The school of thought globally is that when you kill someone and subsequently it's been found elsewhere that the person you killed was really not the murderer, so you can't undo it.
Really?
What should we be doing?
That is the school of thought that says that death penalty does not culminate in a reduction of crime, and that there are instances where judges have gotten it wrong and have convicted somebody, sentenced the person to death, but it turns out that down the line the true person pops up. So sometimes it is such a way that the judicial process can even be wrong on the conviction, and if you kill that person, you can resurrect that person to, as it were, compensate him.
Do you belong to that school that capital punishment should be removed completely?
Oh yes, as a human rights, working with a human rights organization, that is it. But I'm sure it is an entrenched clause, and then we have to do something, just not Parliament.
All right, thank you.
I answered it at my vetting.
The global view is that it should only be restricted to war criminals, as it were.
And treason.
Okay. Thank you very much. This has been Newsfile, and thanks very much for your company. My guest have been Abdul Malik Kwekubaku, Junior Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Ni Ayikwe Otu, he's a lawyer, he's a former Attorney General. Nana Atodazi, a former Chief of Staff and also a lawyer. And Abraham Amaleba is a lawyer with the NDC legal team. I'm Samson Ladi Ayanini. Thank you very much. The show was produced by the executive producer, Sedem Ofori, and with the assistance of Emmanuel Ante. Yaya has been the man behind the camera and directing the television footages that came to you. And the cameramen have been Bright Champon, Ernest Anan, Alex Ahemfo, and Sound Joseph. Thank you very much. Lightering has been Isaac K. Amwa. Well, as always, my outfit has been by Latida. Just give them a call and get the cheapest and the very best in African prints. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next.